We have in this case a factual setting on pipe fitter. He was a 40-year pipe fitter in this case. That's a 1971 journal from his union. Remember, the case is about if he was warned, he would have protected himself. And you start showing the juries, well, there were warnings out there, and he didn't protect himself. And what is the real reason for the injury? Well, obviously, you want to tell them what a gasket is. What's a gasket do? You know, people just think they have no concept. It's seals. It seals the joints. It seals. The idea of a gasket is it's probably not exposed to begin with. You want to talk about those high-dose products. In this case, we have a man who was in the Navy for 3 years, which is probably where he got his highest dose of insulation. You talk about it. He's a pipe fitter. To get to my gasket, he's got to rip insulation off a pipe. Show pictures of those other products. Point out to the jury at this point. You heard Mr. Lanier tell you about the hundreds and thousands of articles. By the time we got around to Harry's and the researchers saying that gaskets don't create dust, those 1,000 articles had already been published. And the truth is, he's right. Over 1,000 researchers had looked at the issue, and by this point in time, nobody ever thought the product my client made would hurt anybody at any time. I would have explained dose response, and that's the reason for the 1,000 articles. This was Selikoff. I would show the jury that what they were really talking about, this was 1969. These were all the dust counts that Selikoff got when he looked at all those other products, that those articles that Mr. Lanier told you about were really published, and show that Dr. Selikoff, 6 years later, had actually looked at the, and he agreed with the 68 article by Harry's and said that gaskets are not dusty or bad for you. This was the Bremerton study. We now come full circle from 1945 that I showed the jury. We're now in 1978, and the Navy once again looked at gaskets, and if you read it, it's a big thick report, and I'd hold it up for the jury, and they would conclude that gaskets are still not bad for you. Now we're up to 78, and by the way, Mr. Lanier missed it, because now, by 1978, when we're still saying gaskets aren't bad for you, it wasn't 1,000 articles, there were 2,000 articles. And they still didn't think it was bad for you. Dana Corporation, who, by the way, with Barry Castleman in 1977, went before the EPA and asked to take asbestos out of gaskets. And Dr. Castleman will tell you on a witness stand that Dana actually did the right thing. They had a whole non-asbestos product line. And they wrote the Army a letter in 1981. The Army had just sent out the spec, which also, by the way, is the Navy spec, asking with information on asbestos gaskets. And Dana's response was, what are you doing? We have non-asbestos. Can't you change the spec and get asbestos out of gaskets? And the Army, with the help of the Navy, said, forget it. If you don't sell us asbestos, we don't want it. So now we come to 1986, and OSHA, for those plaintiffs' attorneys who want to argue about the idea of encapsulation, but OSHA actually concluded that the gasket process was such that they are encapsulated, and the fibers won't be released. And OSHA looked at the dust counts and concluded that the mean average was 0.06, which is below, by the way, the current standard today. But if you look today on the current list of controlled products, and now, as Mr. Lanier said, we're not up to 2,000 articles, we are up to probably 4,000 articles. Under today's current standard, you can make all these products, including gaskets, and put asbestos in them, and you probably don't need a warning label for them. And Barry Castleman will concede that to you if he's on a witness stand, that you don't need warnings on gaskets with asbestos even today.